Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
We are Verasus technology based out of Chennai, and we are into renewable energy. We deliver turnkey renewable projects within Tamil Nadu, and now planning to expand to the Hyderabad and the other regions in the southern part of India. So I myself, I come back with a background of industrial engineering. I did my master's from Texas A&M, and got an opportunity to be in Naval Air Station for about a year, developing methods and standards for their maintenance, repair, and overall operations. So from there, I got into more into the aviation segment for about 5 to 6 years, where more into seeing what are the best practices for the maintenance, repair overall, and guiding them through various solution implementations on that segment. So got an opportunity to work with Boeing for a couple of years, then Ramco Systems, and then finally thought about starting something on my own, and that's where I got into the energy sector. So energy sector, I had been in energy sector for almost close to 21 years. And when I started, we were a team of about 6 people, uh, including myself. So most of us were more into testing and commissioning activity, where we go to the final stage in the substation, that is the power substations, do the complete equipment testing, hand it over to the client utility. And that's where we started. And then subsequently, we developed ourselves into an EPC company. And we do turnkey solutions, starting from the conceptualization of why the power is required, what power is required for an industry, infrastructure, or utility businesses by itself, and completely lay the procedures for them in terms of how we can deliver this and do a complete end-to-end project management and deliver them the substations. So this is what I had been part till until 2021. From 2018, I started looking at something to go more into non-fossil fuel based energy. That's something that was hitting me. Then I was really looking at various options. That's when I started looking at few businesses here as a startup who were more focused into using EIM or developing their EIM own platform to bring energy optimization, to lower the energy consumption, or to bring an alternate source of energy for any of the processes, and increase the percentage of alternate source versus the fossil fuel based, so that they can start looking at how they can start curbing the carbon footprint. So that was my interest, and I really jumped into that. And 2022 is what I developed this business later of my own, which is purely into green energy. My focus is now more into greener energy, while I'm still part of my substations business based out of Abu Dhabi. So that's the company briefly, with the pure value of creating sustainable and economical solutions for our stakeholders. And we are into the solar, we are into building substations, and the recent development is something that we are looking at getting into voluntary carbon market. That's one more extension of what we delivered as a pure substation and an electrical power generation using PV modules, that is solar plants. We take it further more step to bring additional revenue for our clients, where they don't just save only with the energy that's being generated by the solar and be part of the greener community, but also add more revenue stream for them subsequently in years to come, which I can explain probably during the session. So carbon credit first is something that I would like to understand, if each one of you could throw what you understand as about carbon credit. Quite there. I can probably draw an example of what would be easiest way to, put forward the carbon credit and how it can get qualified as a carbon credit. Let's say we have a client who is using a solar plant. Yeah. So now that solar plant is generating energy, and this is more of a clean and green energy that it generates. Okay, obviously there are certain ratios with which we'll have to really see how much carbon is removed, but it's a cleaner. For now, let's understand it's a clean energy. This clean energy is further reducing or making the planet cooler somewhere, right? So that cooling of planet is being purchased by big companies. Why they purchase, will come to that. It's being purchased by big companies. And that cooling what they purchase is called carbon credit. Just to give you a kind of a layman way of what it is. Now, how do you get that cooling? Is purely by reduction in the carbon, which can account for how much reduction has happened or how much removal, as he pointed out, removal has happened. And that removal goes through the rigorous process of a project development towards the same client who has given you a plant, say that, okay, we have generated so much of solar energy through solar power, and take this and convert it for us as a carbon credit. So there are verifiers, there are registries with whom we work to get this data, gone through the process, gone through the methodology that we need to follow, following all the standards to get converted them into a verified carbon units. And that verified carbon units are carbon credits. Now again, this has the markets are a little different here, where you have carbon credit in the voluntary sector, and it's also on the compliance. So compliance, as you can probably see, the figure disappears clearly, that there are industries which has being allowed by government, the policymakers, to say that, okay, fine, this is the based on the product that you deliver, based on the raw material or the inflow product mix that you bring to deliver, you have a carbon capping of a particular level. So beyond that carbon capping, when you go up, you need to buy credits, because that's your set limit. And who can sell this credit are the other industries who can adapt to some kind of technology, process changes or alterations in process, still to deliver the same goods what they wanted to deliver, and keep their level much lower than what's the set limit for them. To the extent that they keep lower, they can sell to the other businesses. So that's the more of a mandated business, like which compliance carbon market operate with. And when I say voluntary, the name itself suggests the voluntary is non-obligatory. You're not necessarily forced to buy carbon credits, but still there are businesses who wants to do for the cost. And these businesses, when they go with their emissions which they cannot avoid, they buy carbon credit from the individual project developers. The individual project developers are something like what we implement solar projects for any of our an ancillary supplier for automobile company here who produces cups, who produces connectors for automobile industries. They wanted to keep their energy clean and say that this my final product which is coming out is more greener than the other product. So those companies, they develop, or any individuals can develop a solar plant or a battery energy storage system to help the grid stabilize and lower the volume of fossil fuel based energy or energy from any other sources other than green, and start selling it to the other industries which voluntarily wants to come and buy the power. Absolutely. So it's in every stage of the product life cycle, starting from the point that it comes in the project form to get the product on after the execution. All the stages, there are certain calculations that gets involved, and not just that, the entire emission segment is into few scopes, that scope 1, scope 3, and scope 2, where scope 2 is what we predominantly work. We can really look at those explanations a little later, which is not the main subject on this one, because it's more of an extensive one that I can probably share some literatures with you later. So when we see about the emission which has happened, the GHG emissions, the majority of them is almost up to 70% is from the energy sector. And the balance 25 to 30% is from the affluent, that is agriculture, forestry, and other land use. And then industries, chemical, cements, steel, and more of a energy intense industries where it's in a hard to abate kind of a scenario, and they do that emission. And as a business, we started focusing more into the energy segment, and particularly into the electrical part of the energy segment, to play our role in how we can help contribute towards the reduction or curbing into the carbon footprint. So that's some facts that we can talk about where we stand from globally. We position ourselves in India. We are almost about fourth in terms of energy capacity, the building of energy capacity towards greener form. So we are into the third position into renewable energy when it comes to solar, and this has put us in a position like 50% of energy consumption is more greener, where the total energy capacity that we build is about 485 gigawatts, and we are almost 50% there. And this is something that we are committed to COP also, and we are close to our target even before 2030, what was our commitment period. And another area which I want all of you to really look at is the industries, more on monetary terms. The industry pays somewhere about 4 to 14 rupees per kilowatt hour. That's 1 unit of energy consumption, for the industries. This depends on the time where they're using off peak hour, on peak hour, and various period, but it's in the range of that. Whereas you build a solar plant for them, the leverage cost of energy is somewhere about 2 to maybe about 3 to 3.5 rupees per kilowatt. So that's our proposition with which we started, moving into industries. Obviously, this has a lot of challenges, but still we started convincing industries to adapt to the solar, even on the voluntary market. Some numbers to see exactly where to come back to the focus of the presentation today, or what I wanted to share with you, is we would look at what the voluntary carbon market past was and where we are in today, and what is an expected development over a period of years, right? So certain numbers that I could pull out from the sources as mentioned below is we have about close to 514 million the credits that have been traded during the 2021. Any reasons or anything that you can think of why you have such a big peak during that period? So it was a post-COVID recovery period where all corporates were, kind of committed to the net zero pledges. So they started buying carbon credits. Whoever has produced carbon credits before, they started buying carbon credits left, right, and center. So that's why you had a lot of trading that has happened at that time. And post that, what has happened is we started seeing a tapering down completely. And this tapering is mainly for the reason that the credits that were sold at that time had a lot of integrity issue, which the market has raised completely to see how this credit, who validated this credit. What is it like? I see that you had a question about what goes and how does it get calculated clearly, and what part of the production line knows how much of carbon it could curb out, or it could remove, or that kind of questions started coming, and media playing a more kind of negative concerns in terms of scrutinizing those aspects, more of a greenwashing trend that started during that time. And that has led the position almost to 2024 to where we see that it's about close to 76 million, and subsequently 2025 it's even more lower, at least in the third quarter again. Now, but there are preparations that have started towards this. Even now on the present And that preparation is something that's been happening in the last 1 year period, almost about 2025 or end of 2024 itself. We started with a lot of shift to quality of the carbon credit. When I say shift to quality of the carbon credit, it means that we don't really go by what number of carbon credits can, kind of offset the emission that I put. It's more of the credibility, or it's more of the quality of the carbon credit, what process it has gone through, and where I can set a larger premium. And this larger premium again goes more for a removal of a credit rather than reduction of credit. When I say removal of credit, it's almost to the extent of sequestration of carbon, like you completely remove the carbon, and more prominent into the FLO sector, which is more of agriculture, where the carbon completely gets removed from the atmosphere. So that's another area where the increase in demand of removal is really driving the market today, and there are businesses working towards that. And the recalibration part we discussed already, and the maturity that we are following, really looking towards preparing ourselves for the future of this market, and ensuring that the more we prepare for the future in terms of what we can deliver as in the carbon trading, make the carbon trading faster, make the carbon trading visible rather than faster, take this process of turning around the carbon, the energy generated to carbon credit as a verified unit on a faster pace. Today, it's typically taking about 2.5 years to, submit your project and getting them verified through the verifier bodies, bringing it back with multiple iterations, having the findings of the registrars, and finally allocating you the carbon credit. So that cycle time has to be completely lowered. That's one area that this industry at present is working for future. So there are various methodologies using technology. The one, direct air capture, is a methodology where the observant draws air into the atmospheric air into the chamber, and uses a chemical process to separate air separation method, and bring the carbon dioxide separately, take it down underground for sequestration, or use it in other products. Now, the other process that the other development that is there is already on the blockchain technology, where tokenization of this carbon credit happens, where with the tokenization, there is a better traceability for reducing the fraudulent risk, and it's more of a transparent environment that trading can happen. It helps potentially to have, a kind of a unified interoperable ecosystem across registries. When I say registries, there are few very known registries, and take a really set a real premium. Their charges are also a little high on a business perspective, if I can talk. Like, these are gold standards, and then CDM, and also Vera. Vera is one that we are going through, and I'll be running through the processes a little bit on Vera, so that it could help you at least to get head started with your research if you are interested in this area. The other area is integrating with the compliance market. When I say integrating with the compliance market, what it means is linking the voluntary carbon market with some kind of an hybridization with the regular market, that's a compliance market as well. So these kind of allows, to unlock the cross-border flow of the trading that could happen, standardizing the accounting more to avoid double counting of carbon credits. So when I say double counting, there is some terminology called additionality. Just remember this, we'll talk about it later. So we can look at what possible ways that the double counting can be, can be arrived, and ensure that through our process, none of this had that path where, it loses the integrity of the carbon credit what you have. You cannot be selling the same carbon credit to two different people, or you cannot have the source of this carbon credit with the same, the output that is required as a prerequisite for arriving at this carbon credit. So that's more, if you see, all these things are revolving more around the quality of the carbon credit, and more of reduction in the time that the registry process should be lowered. So that's what the current time we are working for the future of the entire voluntary credit market situation. Now, the other thing that is again AI, and never stops in this. AI is being leveraged. Satellite imagery in combination with AI is being leveraged. IoTization, all those things, and also the geospatial using geographical information system softwares. All these things in combination puts, kind of enables a kind of a real time integrity checks in what way this entire process or entire trading can happen, and the credits quality is being really reviewed when you utilize all the systems. So that's the other way of, when I say credits quality has to be reviewed, it again counts for what methodology you're using for monitoring, reporting and verifying this. So the monitoring, reporting and verifying again takes a new phase into digitalization of monitoring, reporting and verifying. That's MRV. That's another process that really counts for into the complete carbon market, where it's one of the stage by which the carbon credits or the process of project development to the carbon conversion. So we'll take a specific use case, a small one that we have taken now. We have taken about 10 rooftops solar, and then we have taken about 10 industries, which totally accounts to about 5.2 megawatt of energy production so far that's been generated. When in terms of megawatt hour, it would be a little different, and this counts for about close to 7,000 verified carbon units. It's still not verified, it's in the process, and it's under development by Vera. And as a business, we are projecting in our program where there will be multiple projects to bring this almost about 0.5 gigawatts of energy to convert them into carbon credit. So that's the whole exercise we are talking about. A quick comparison on what the methodologies that we'll have to follow. What methodology? When I selected this project, what is the methodology that I have to follow? So there are, as I said, various registries. So we'll have to look at what registry that we wanted to work with, look at what methodologies that they are following. They happen to follow some methodologies that is common to all the registries. There are some specific registry based methodologies that needs to be followed, specific standards to be followed. So all these things are like what we discussed in the last presentation, policies that these accreditators build within their organization to say that, okay, this is what you follow to get your carbon, have its path all the way from the energy generated to a verified carbon unit. So we selected ACM 002 for our project. So again, this has a core methodology. What we follow, the same thing, the additionality factor, monitoring and the grid factor. These are all various parameters with which we are again saying what documents to be used to run through our project development. So it's purely a project development where you have an initialization of a project, taking it through the process of planning. What this planning is going to do it is really see how to execute, how to monitor, how to report, how to verify, and have this carbon credits converted, and eventually closure of the project by converting the carbon credit. Again, restart this exercise for the new generated energy through the same plant. So that's the cycle of the project that will be following. Quickly, the project cycle that I could take it from Vera as a source is the methodology selection, like what we discussed now a few minutes back. With this methodology selection, we bring all the projects that, some of the projects what I showed in the use case, those projects have been brought in there. We listed the projects, and then the listing of the projects is selecting the right documents. There are documentation part that needs to be done. There are certain verifications to be done. There are certain evidences to be provided. There are certain real-time data to be captured and put in the particular platform the way this is keeping on generating. So those are the input that we provide for the project listing part itself. Then we have to appoint a VVB. VVB is a Verifier and Validation Bureau. Verifier and Validation Bureau is a third-party accreditor who would be approved by Vera. So if I am registering with Vera, I need to take only the VVBs of Vera registered VVBs. So they have to completely, vet our project completely, do their findings, give us back the feedback. We have to make those corrections, again resubmit. So it's an iteration that goes almost, typically for the project size what I have given, it's about 6 months of iteration with the documentation and with the real data that we stream from the live systems has to be provided, and various drawings and inputs to be provided at this stage. Bring it to the project registration, which is purely being an initial step or the prerequisite for Vera to take it and start processing. And then you again, the entire thing starts in terms of project monitoring, bringing it again, every project that gets monitored again in terms of the new energy that has come in, again getting converted, has to be done, reviewed by verification body again, the third party one. Take it through the VCU allocation, and then again monitoring. The monitoring cycle is complete because they wanted to ensure that any energy that's been recorded, it's not something that is previous. And that's not just all, but there are many other factors that they do keep monitoring, and there are about a list of parameters to be followed. And these are the things that we keep it in the project development. Some documentations quickly to review is, these green ones are all standards. The blue ones, what we see are the reporting documents that we need to prepare for submissions. So when I say standards, this clearly talks about what kind of energy it is, what took to generate those energies, like what are the contents into it, what did you spend in generating those energies, materials used, and various consumption pattern that has been used for generating that. So those are all the inputs that goes, and what kind of project that you pick fits in what standards to be followed. These are about some 45 documents to be followed as a standards to see what specific project has to be selected. Standards have to be adopted for the project that we are projecting and wanted them to be listed in the pipeline there. So these are all templates which are available for reporting parts. Like each one of them will have multiple documentations to be done, and then take it through the registry process, get again the verification done. Once it's verified, then it's called verified carbon units. And that verified carbon units stays here, and the trading happens once it moves into an exchange or a platform where it can be traded. So we stop up to the point where we verify. We say that the carbon units are verified, and these are all clean, verified units with the highest quality as certified by Vera. So roughly what we are looking at, I'll come to the payback period. First, I will talk about how this cycle runs through quickly. So each project that we pick, if it is sized sufficiently big, like we are talking in gigawatts, yes, it's a really kind of feasible project to do. But when it is in small, like the few ones that I picked up for rooftops, and individual rooftops cannot afford to do and get their carbon credits verified. If you take a small factory about 100 kilowatts, again, it's not a feasible solution for them. So what I'm doing here is I'm bringing it as an accreditor. I'm going to be accrediting all those things with various parties of my clients as well as the other who have adapted the solar or windmill, to bring all the data into the stream and sign up with them an agreement to share 50% of the carbon credit revenue with them over a period of roughly about 2.5 years to 3.5 years period. So this is what is the timeline of your return on investment period to start at that point. And it has the project sizing. If you look at segment wise, the higher the segment has a better IRR, and even the investment perspective, the net present value really kicks off better for a higher size of project. So that's what industry is really looking at today, to take a bigger size and start working. But the way that I had looked at here is not just stay with that and look at all the community to participate in it, so that we can make this change act faster and bring more revenue into it, that we can keep the sustainable approach continuing with feeding in more revenue towards this again and again. So that's the cycle that we can really look at this one to be activated, not to leave out the small energies that's being produced everywhere, which nobody has anything to do about how to convert them into a quality carbon credits.